Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Elon Musk, they all have the same 24 hours as we do. How do they get so much done and we cannot? Well, one of those is, of course, they have a good team of people around them, but they also have a lot of focus and a lot of diligence. And so we want to be able to figure out, how do we get that focus? Because hopefully, even if you're not super busy right now, hopefully you will be very soon. And you will be having this problem where you need to make sure that your time is controlled and that it's not controlling you. All right, so let's jump in. What are we talking about today? Obviously, our goal is always to work smarter, not harder. That is my goal 100% of the time in every aspect of my life. I'm always looking for the most efficient way. And so that's part of what we're going to talk about today. These are actually things that I use in my life because, spoiler alert, I am not type A. I'm not naturally good at time management. I am definitely somebody who's needed to take a lot of these and implement them, because otherwise I would get nothing done. My ADHD would be running wild. All right, so what we're going to talk about, there are a few problems we're going to address, and then we're going to talk about some of the solutions. So the first problem, procrastination. If you're like me, I procrastinate everything I possibly can, including doing this workshop. I procrastinated it until like 2 days ago. And so I am in the same boat as you, trust me. And so then we're going to talk about the solution is actually prioritization. Multitasking, that's a problem. We're going to talk about the solution is actually focus. And then we're going to talk about what's important now. So I gave you a few spoilers, but stick with me because I am going to hopefully clear some of this up for you. All right, so what type of procrastinator are you? The perfectionist. You put off tasks out of the fear of not being able to complete it perfectly. This is not me. I'm more of the done is better than perfect. Just get it done and we can tweak it along the way. But there are a lot of people who are those perfectionists who are saying, no, I can't do it perfectly. So let me not do it. The defier doesn't believe someone should dictate their time schedule. This is a lot of people in real estate. A lot of entrepreneurs, me included, a lot of entrepreneurs feel like, no, I do this. I'm in real estate because I don't want somebody managing me. I don't want somebody telling me where I should be, when I should be, how much money I should make, anything like that. I want to create my own life. I want to live my own schedule. I want to dictate my own time. That is great. Although at some point you're going to need to dictate your own schedule and you're going to need to tell yourself where to be at what time, because just because you're defying somebody else doesn't mean you can also defy yourself. How about the worrier? Puts off tasks out of fear of change or leaving the comfort of the known. That is definitely something. A lot of people do this. You know, it's like the evil that you know. You stay put in some place, you're loyal to somebody, you're doing it, even though you know that this is not what you should be doing or where you should be. That's the worrier. That's not me. I'm like, let's jump in there. Let's get it done. I don't want to stay in the comfort of my own anything. I want to always make sure I'm pushing the boundaries. How about the crisis maker? Puts off tasks because they like working under pressure. That is a lot of people. A lot of people put off tasks because you like working under pressure. Now, it's interesting that they call this the crisis maker because, you know, we don't think of it like that. But the reality is a lot of like psychologists and people will tell you, obviously, everything has to do with how you were raised in your childhood and all leads back to all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people like the crisis. They like being in crisis mode. And so a lot of people procrastinate because they like the adrenaline that brings. They like working under pressure. That could be me a little bit. I feel like a deadline really gets me going. And so, you know, I don't though want to be considered a crisis maker. So that's something to say, I hope that's not me, but maybe it is. How about the overdoer? Takes on too much and struggles with finding time to start and complete tasks. This is a lot of times the type A people. They take on too much and then they're like, I can't get it all done. which one of these are you? I want you to kind of look through these and identify yourself. So obviously we know there are negative consequences of procrastination. So what are some of those? Higher levels of stress and illness. Interesting, because we stress ourselves out, especially that crisis seeker. You have higher levels of stress, which of course lead to higher levels of illness, because when you are always operating at a high stress level, your immune system is compromised. And so it makes sense that higher levels of stress, the more you procrastinate, the higher your level of stress and illness. Increased burden on social relationships. This is something that maybe you haven't thought about this. When you, or me, I can say it too, when I push things off and don't do them and procrastinate, eventually it's going to catch up to me. And then I'm like, I have to get this done. I have to get this done. And I don't care what happens in my relationship or with my family or anything like that. And I say, oh, I have to cancel things and I can't do this because I've put off all of these things. And now there's a burden placed on those social relationships. But we don't think about that when we're pushing things off. We don't think about all of these things. How about resentment from friends, family, and coworkers? Same kind of thing. Family and friends are going to start resenting us. Coworkers. If we're working with people and we constantly say, oh, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that, but maybe whatever they're working on relies on what you're working on or finishing or whatever, that's going to lead to resentment. What about talking about our clients? If we're saying, yeah, I'll get your contract written, and then 3 days later, it's still not written, and then they don't get the house, that's a big deal. We have got to make sure that we're not procrastinating on stuff like that. How about consequences of delinquent bills and income tax returns? Do you guys procrastinate paying your taxes? Especially as self-employed people, and we have to pay our taxes quarterly and we have to do all of these other things. We didn't necessarily get into business, get into entrepreneurship, get into real estate to be a business person, to make sure that we're running our books, to be able to make sure that we have an accountant, to, like be a bookkeeper. We didn't get into it for that. So oftentimes this is something that we push off, and then we have delinquent bills and income taxes. How many times have I procrastinated to the level of, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. Now I need to do this. And now it causes stress. That happens a lot. Now, what about procrastinating your lead gen? What about pushing that off and saying, oh yeah, I'll do that later. Well, later never comes. And lead gen is what brings you business. And so sometimes we procrastinate lead gen for fun things, or for good things, or what we say are good things. Like, I have a transaction that I'm working on. I have a client who needs my attention. And so I'm just not going to call my sphere. I'm not going to reach out. I'm not going to do these things because I need to focus on them and their issues. Well, the reality is, number one, their issues probably don't take very long. It probably takes a very short time to deal with all that. Number two is that if we don't lead gen, if we constantly put that off, then what's going to happen after this transaction closes? We have nothing in the pipeline. We have nothing that's going to get us to the next transaction. So we have got to make sure that we are prioritizing that lead gen. We have to make sure that that's happening. How do we avoid this procrastination? It's about prioritization. It's about making priorities. Now, we've talked about this a lot. I talk about this a lot because this is one of the things that I really like to teach on, maybe because it has opened my mind and I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. But we as humans typically fall under, everything we do falls under one of these four quadrants. Quadrant one being important and urgent. These are the crises, the pressing problems, the deadlines. Quadrant two, important but not urgent. These activities are prevention, capability improvement, so we improve ourselves, relationship building, recognizing new opportunities, planning, recreation. This is highlighted in green because, spoiler alert, this is where you want to be. This is where we want to live. We want to live in quadrant two. This is going to be like exercising, taking care of yourself. What ends up happening is that we say, oh, I don't need to exercise. I don't need to eat right. I'm young, I'm fine, I don't need to deal with all this stuff. And we don't deal with it in quadrant 2. And then all of a sudden we have a heart attack. And now all of a sudden it's important and urgent that we get our eating and our exercise under control. And that's the same kind of thing in business. It's the same kind of thing everywhere. We don't do our lead gen. We don't do our coaching. We don't do the things that we need to do. And now all of a sudden we have no money and it's a crisis. And so I need to do my lead gen. I need to do all this stuff because now it's important and urgent. We don't want things to get to that quadrant 1. We want them to stay in that quadrant 2, but it's so easy to push quadrant 2 stuff off. It's so easy to say, I don't have to worry about this. But the result of being in quadrant 2 is that we have vision and perspective. We're able to look at something not in a stressed out way. We're able to say, okay, if I don't get this done today, here are the things that are going to happen. Or if I do get this done today, here's the long-term effect of that. But we can't do that if we're constantly in that stress mode. It leads to balance. It leads to discipline, self-discipline mainly, control, self-control, fewer crises. We have got to live in quadrant 2 because look in quadrant 1, the result of being in quadrant 1, stress, burnout, crisis management, and always putting out fires. That is like the worst part of our job, putting out fires, client fires. One of the things that I focus on with my clients is I always want to make sure that I'm doing a buyer's consultation with them. That falls under that quadrant 2. It's not urgent, but it's important because I want to make sure that I'm walking them through. And I do kind of a lengthy buyer consultation. It's like half hour. I reserve an hour amount of time to be able to like answer all their questions and walk them through everything because I'm walking them through the process. I'm walking them through the market. I'm making sure to address any questions that they have. I want them to know what they're getting into because this is a big deal, but this is not urgent. But when we're in a transaction and they're like, oh my gosh, this home inspection report is 2.5, 100 pages long. I'm able to say, right, but remember we talked about this. We're only looking for things that are the major big things. We're not looking for things that are little worn cosmetic issues. And so because I already talked to them about that, it avoids me having to put out the fires. It avoids that crisis management. We've already talked to them about that in the beginning. But so many agents say, I don't need to spend time doing a buyer's consultation like that. My consultation is saying, what do you want? And I'm an order taker. And I'm saying, oh, you want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house? Great. Let me find that for you. But we're not educating our clients in any way. We're not saying, okay, this is the process. Here's what you can expect. Here's what you can expect of me. Here's what I need of you. All of that kind of stuff is going to make the process so much easier. But because we're not willing to put in the effort in the beginning, we just don't do it. And then it leads to stress. It leads to stress on your part, stress on their part. And so it's super important, even in our business activities, to be in this quadrant 1. Same kind of thing about managing our finances. We did not get into this to be bookkeepers, but guess what? We have got to be a bookkeeper until we can hire a bookkeeper. And so you have to make sure that you're managing your finances. Do you have a time block for managing your finances, for inputting everything into QuickBooks, for making sure that it's all up to date? Do you have that time blocked? Do you have to have that time blocked? Because guess what? If you don't have that time blocked,
I'm not sure I understand.
She's listening to me and she doesn't get it. If you don't have that time blocked, it's going to turn into urgent and important. It's going to go into quadrant 1 when we're trying to do our taxes and we don't have anything in order, but we need to get it all in order, or we haven't managed our finances, so we don't have enough money to pay our taxes. That happens a lot with real estate agents, more so than you would care to imagine. And I mean, real estate agents are known to be like $100,000 in tax debt. We don't want to get there. It's because they have not lived in quadrant 2. They're living their life in quadrant 1 and putting out fire after fire after fire. All right. So I think I've harped enough. We want to be in quadrant 2. Now, quadrant 3 is the not important, but urgent. These are the things like notifications where it's like, answer me, Facebook notifications, emails, interruptions, certain meetings where it's like people are saying, I want to talk now. But the reality is it's not that important. And so you have to understand where like, what are my priorities? Because somebody else's priority does not need to be your priority. Same kind of thing when we're talking about clients. If they're saying, I need you to call me right now, they probably don't. They probably could wait an hour for you to do your lead gen and then be able to call. Or they're probably going to be okay for you to text them and say, I'm in a meeting or I'm doing something. I'll call you in an hour. I'll call you very soon. I'll call you tomorrow, whatever it is. Somebody else's emergency. What is that phrase? Somebody else's poor planning does not constitute an emergency on your part. I butchered that, but it's something like that. And that's kind of this quadrant 3 stuff where it's like, it's not important for you. It's important for them. Okay, well, you'll address that on your own time. That does not need to turn into an urgent thing for you. You can say, I have time blocked a time where I deal with all of these things. And so once I get to that time blocked time, I'll go through all my emails. I'll look to see what these people said. I'll respond to them. I'll get back to them, but on my own time. So what's the result of this? Short-term focus, which we'll talk about today. Having that focus is so key. Crisis management, again, reputation for being a chameleon in character. You don't want that reputation of being all things for all people. You want people to say they're good at their job, period. And if they like you, great, which we all know people do business with people we know, like, and trust. So if they don't quite know who you are because you're always like running to everyone's beck and call, you're a chameleon, and people don't want that. People want to know who they're working with. You see goals and plans as worthless. People in this, who live in this quadrant 3, living in the not important but the urgent, who are always responding to an email, who are always like jumping on all of these things, goals and plans don't mean as much to you, which is okay, except if our goal is to live in quadrant 2, that's where the goal setting happens. That's where coming back to our goals happens. If we set goals because our coach told us to set goals, but then we're never following up with them, we're never going back to them, all of a sudden, again, we end up in the quadrant 1, urgent and important. Oh my gosh, I meant to sell 12 houses this year and it's December and I've only sold 3. Okay, what are we going to do? We need to go back to those goals. We need to figure this out. All of a sudden that turned into urgent and important when you could have been doing this all year long. So we don't want to see goals and plans as worthless. When we live in quadrant 3, we feel victimized and out of control because we're constantly at somebody else's beck and call. We're constantly saying, oh, what's urgent, what's important or not important, what is calling for my attention. And then we say, oh, I couldn't get anything done today because so-and-so called me, because my client had this issue, because the listing agent wanted this, because my home inspector said this. No, take responsibility, own it, and say, okay, next time, I'm not going to let that happen. Next time, I'm going to live in quadrant 2, and I'm going to say, this is my time block. This is when I am able to do these things. And then it also leads to shallow and broken relationships because you're at everybody else's beck and call. You don't make time. You don't prioritize your friends, family, significant other, whatever that looks like. And then quadrant 4, this is not urgent, not important. This is busy work. This is like scrolling through social media. These are the time wasters, pleasant activities. But keep in mind, it's not, you can see in that urgent, not urgent, but important is recreation. You do need to take vacations. You do need a time to reset. In fact, I always get my best ideas when I am getting a massage, when I'm on vacation, when I'm driving. And yesterday, yeah, I was up in Santa Cruz because my partner had a work on-site meeting. And so I was able to go and like spend time at the beach, which of course I live at the beach, so I'm always there, but it felt more like a vacation because it was a different beach. And I just got to spend some time driving and thinking, and I put together like this whole big plan of like for social media stuff that I would not have done or thought of doing if I was constantly in the go, go, go of it all, or in the busy work, or in the quadrant 3. I don't have time. You have to take time to step away, work in your business, not on your business. Other way around. work on your business, not in your business. When you're constantly working in your business, when you're constantly in the weeds and you don't come up for a breath to be in that 10,000 foot view, you're not able to plan ahead. You're not able to have these great ideas. You're constantly in the weeds with it. You're constantly saying, this happened, so we need to react. You're always in a reactive state. You're not ever getting ahead. So when we live in quadrant 4, what are the results? Total irresponsibility. Makes sense. We get fired from jobs. We're dependent on others or institutions for our basics. So a lot of time, this is obvious. If you're sitting there watching Netflix all day long, you're not going to have great results. Now, that's not to say that there isn't time for that, because there are some times when I feel like I just need to zone out, and that's what I'm doing. But your work day should not be that time. Your work day needs to be your work time. And you want to make sure to build in some flex time, which we'll talk about. You want to make sure that your calendar is not so full of things that you have no time to breathe. You want to make sure that you have time for that. So I'm not saying that you never can be in these other quadrants. I'm saying you want to try to always be in this quadrant too. All right, so let's talk about these quadrants. What do you guys say? I want you to come off mute and tell me, what are some of these things in these different quadrants? What are examples for quadrant 1? The urgent and important. What are some examples for you from your business, from your life? What does this look like?
Diminished relationship quality with family and friends.
Yeah, that's a result. What are some of the things that happen? Like, what happens to make that diminished?
You are always in a frenzy. Just trying to get.
You're always in a frenzy because you're always responding to these different tasks. What else? What else do you guys think is in this urgent and important quadrant? What falls under it?
Well, bill pay, I feel like, or anything correlated with money, and I don't know, anything that comes that, like, the car is broken or something. There's things that need attention, urgent, important. Car breaks down, roofing.
Okay, that's a really good example, the car, because there are times when it's like, it broke and I need to get it taken care of. That is quadrant 1, urgent and important. And a lot of times, if we keep up with its general maintenance, that is the important but not urgent. And so we don't have as many of these issues if we live our lives and if we think about our car in this quadrant 2, not urgent but important. So if we're constantly getting regular maintenance checks, it's not urgent because nothing's going to happen. Well, potentially nothing will happen if we don't get it done. And if we don't get it done, something could happen and we end up in that urgent and important quadrant 1. So here are some thoughts that I had on this. Urgent and important. When we have closings, that always is like, we have a closing and, we haven't answered this question. We haven't signed this form. We haven't done this stuff. It doesn't need to be like that. We can say, okay, I have a closing coming up in a week. Here are the things that we need to make sure to get done. And a lot of times that comes with practice. That comes with talking to your coaches. That comes with talking to your TCs. What are things that need to come up, in a week to make sure that I'm on top of this? Any kind of client issues, those are important and they feel urgent. And a lot of times we can get ahead of it if we live in quadrant 2, if we do those buyer consultations, if we're calling them regularly to update them, if we're doing these things, we can hopefully avoid some client issues, and we cannot avoid them all. Emily just had a mess on her hands where she had all kinds of client issues and it seemed like she did everything right. That still falls under the important and urgent. So sometimes we can avoid this, sometimes we can't. Whatever it is, it ends up in this quadrant 1 where it feels stressful. How about writing offers? Writing offers for sure is important and urgent. And when you're new at it, if you haven't watched our RPA video, if you have not been practicing writing offers, they very much feel stressful. I will tell you, I can write an offer in probably less than 10 minutes at this. I mean, probably definitely less than 10 minutes because I've put in the work to say, okay, I'm going to practice doing these. I'm going to, like I create the videos for them. I know what I'm looking at. I've read them already. I know what it's saying. And so I've done that work, which is in quadrant 2, the not urgent, but important, of saying, I know that I'm going to have clients who need to write an offer real quick, especially back 6 months ago. Now, today, writing offers for me, especially, I mean, it is not super urgent. I can say, great, I'm going to write an offer tomorrow. I'm going to call the agent. We're going to write an offer in 2 days, even. It's not as urgent as it once was. And so for you to have the stress of it all when you don't need to, that's you putting that in that important and urgent category. What about the not urgent but important? What are some examples of not urgent but important? Quadrant 2.
Well, like you said, writing offers is important but not urgent.
Can be, yeah. And it can be important and urgent depending on the timing of it. But it should be not urgent but important. What else?
Studying contracts.
Yep, that's a good one.
Together pre-listing package.
Yes.
Putting together marketing things and setting up all, social media sites, realtor.com sites, all those things. I mean, there's so much.
Yep.
Making sure that you have a profile on all of those and making sure that everything's correct on that profile. And there's a lot of inside work.
Yep. There's a lot of that.
But it's not urgent, but it's things that should get done.
Exactly. And so often this is the kind of stuff that we put off because it's not urgent, because we're not saying, we have to get this done. Nobody's saying we have to get this done. That is a really good example. So I put in here some ideas. Your business plan. This happens even with people I have one-on-ones with. The business plan is like the last thing to do because it's not urgent. It's not something that they feel like, I have to get this done. But if you have no plan, you don't know where you're going. Lead gen. Lead gen is such an easy one that doesn't feel urgent, which is why we try and time block a time for you from 9 to 11 every day. Lead gen, hold yourself accountable, make that be what you're doing. Do that lead gen and hold yourself accountable. How about a social media plan? So many of us don't do this. I mean, this is even me. I try and have a social media plan that I stick to, but so often I'm flying by the seat of my pants. And you can fly by the seat of your pants, but you're not going to get the benefit of when you have a plan. Same kind of thing with your business plan. You can just be saying, I'll just sell as many houses as I can this year and we'll see where that gets me. But if you have a plan, then all of a sudden, you know exactly what you have to do. You know if you're falling behind, you know if you're on track. And so that's what you want to make sure that you're focused on. And then coaching. Coaching is a really good one where it's like, okay, it's not urgent. No, I'm not going to hold you to the fire. I'm not going to be saying, hey, where are you? I'm going to be saying, this is what you said you were going to do. Are you going to do it? But it's up to you to really do this. All right, what about quadrant 3? Not important, but urgent. So I put some examples in here, some client issues, interruptions, calls, some meetings, email notifications. All of these feel urgent, and usually they're not important. Here is a little tip for you. I have all of my email notifications turned off for my phone, for my computer, for everything. I have it all turned off because I look at my email when I have time to look at my email, when it is designated that I look at my email. And it happens multiple times a day. So I don't miss things for very long. Maybe it takes me an hour to look at it. But otherwise, I don't know about you guys, but I get hundreds of emails a day. Hundreds, literally. That is not an exaggeration. And if I had a notification going off every single time I got an email, my phone would be dead at 10 a.m. I would never get anything done. And I know that I am the queen of interruptions. It's my ADHD. I'm like, ooh, squirrel. And so if something comes, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say, oh, I got an email. Let me just look and see real quick. Oh, let me just check on that. Oh, it's going to be real quick. But we'll talk about this in a second. Every time our mind shifts and switches focus, it takes like 20 minutes to get back on track. And that's exactly what I see. Every time I see a notification pop up, even if I choose to ignore it, if I see a notification, my brain has to actively say, I'm going to ignore that to continue doing this. As opposed to if I never got that notification, I'm just working away and I can actually get something done. So all of these, any kind of interruptions that you have, one of the key things that I'll give you a spoiler that I use is my do not disturb button, my focus feature on my phone, because if I am getting interruptions, no matter what I'm doing. So like when I'm meeting with you guys, if I'm meeting one-on-one, if I'm in a group coaching, if I'm doing anything, I turn that on. If I'm trying to do deep work, if I'm trying to think about something, when I'm creating these, I turn off everything because I don't want random text messages coming through. I mean, I talk to you guys about my family all the time. I have like 972 text message group chats that I'm a part of that they're texting all day long that have nothing to do with me. And so if I constantly got all of those notifications, I would go crazy and I would get nothing done. So I don't know if you're like me, but that is definitely one of my fail points. And then not urgent, not important, scrolling on social media, designing postcards. This is one of these things that some of you might be like, whoa, we have to design postcards. And I'm talking about like direct mail stuff. But there are so many postcards that you can get a template for. You can get them on command. You can get them on Canva. You can get them wherever. And don't overthink it. Just get the postcard and put in your images and send it. It should not take you a week to do a postcard. It should take you half an hour to do a postcard. And when you start to put those time parameters in place, your work expands to the time you give it, right? So if you say, I need to do this in a week, it's going to take you a week. If you say I need to do this in 2 hours, it's going to take you 2 hours. If you say I only have 20 minutes and I got to get this thing out, guess what? It's only going to take you 20 minutes. So make sure that when you're doing some of these things, you're not overthinking it. Overthinking projects. We have so many agents who tell me I haven't done this yet because I'm trying to do this, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, this is a little bit of me because I want to be as efficient as possible. And so I try and think of ways to work smarter, not harder. And in that, I push things off because I'm like, I'm sure there's an easier way to do it. And the reality is it would have taken me 5 minutes. Just go and do the dang thing. Waiting on headshots to be made. This is one of my favorites. And we talk about this all the time with new agents. Oh, I don't have my business card yet because I'm waiting on my headshots. No, get your iPhone out, get your phone out, take a picture and use that until you get professional headshots or never get professional headshots. You don't need them. Our phones are so good that you do not need to have that. And in fact, I have a good example because I used to have professional headshots that were like from a world famous photographer who was a friend of mine, and I needed new ones. And the one that I started using is one where I'm wearing ripped jeans and tennis shoes. And it's just because I happened to post it on my social media and everybody loved it. Everybody commented on it. And I was like, I'm just going to start using this. And so it may not be what I use forever. In fact, it's not going to be. I keep saying, yeah, I probably should get a new something else, but it's not stopping me. I'm not getting a business card. I'm not getting a digital business card. Remember, I tell you, you should absolutely have a digital business card for free, by the way. Hi Hello app. Hi Hello is the digital business card app that I personally use. And there are tons out there. It's free. But you don't need to have a physical business card, number one. That's a limiting belief. And you don't need to wait until you have the perfect picture because your chances are, even if you've got professional photos, you would hate them anyway. So don't use that as a limiting belief. All right, we got to get moving.
Hey guys, we're going to jump back into the workshop in just a second. But first, if you're getting value out of this, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so that you get more videos just like this as soon as they come out. Don't forget to watch till the end for a special bonus. And one last thing before we jump back in. If you're interested in coaching and want to take your business to the next level, we have a proven system that has worked with hundreds of agents that helps get them into production. We would love to help you. Schedule a call with me at the link below and let's connect. Now let's jump back into the workshop.
How do we live in quadrant 2? We've talked about this before. You have to prioritize. This is what this is all about. We have to determine what are the big rocks. So the idea behind this is you have a bunch of big rocks, you have some smaller pebbles, and you have some sand. The big rocks represent the big things in your life, the things that are in that quadrant 2. They are your family, your relationships, your clients, your lead gen, your business. Those are your big rocks. The smaller rocks are going to be things that maybe are in quadrant 1, those important and urgent things that come up. Those are going to be things like the crises that you're dealing with, your client issues, things that happen with your car, all of that kind of stuff. And then the sand maybe is like the nonsensical fun stuff that we do, like wasting time, the time wasters, all of that kind of stuff. Well, if we try and fill our jar with sand first, with the nonsense, if we try and say, I'm just going to sleep in, I'm just going to watch Netflix for a day or two, I'm just going to do all this stuff. Oh, and something is going to pop up like a client issue, then I'll fill that too. The small rocks can go in there when something pops up, if something's urgent for me. Oh, and yeah, I guess I should take care of my health. I should exercise. I should go on a date night. I should go see my family. Those are the big rocks. I should do my books. I should do coaching. I should do a business plan. I'll just pile those in when I can. What happens is that if you start with the sand, you're never going to be able to fit all that in. But if you start with your big rocks, if you say, I'm going to do a business plan, I'm going to plan, I'm going to time block, I'm going to have a date night, I'm going to do these things that I know are going to be beneficial for my family, my business, my relationships, whatever. And I'm going to put those in first. Then when the pebbles come up, the crises, I'm going to let those come in too, because I already have a plan for it. Then I can sprinkle in some of that sand. I can sprinkle in some of those Netflix binge days when I have nothing to do or whatever. I have time for that. Now, all of a sudden, everything fits. Everything fits in your life because you have prioritized. So the key is that we have to understand what are those priorities. So your homework for this week is to write down what are your priorities in your business, in your life. What are your priorities? All right, so we want to talk about how do we live in this quadrant 2, keeping these priorities in mind. We want to begin with the end in mind. And what that looks like is time blocking. And so I know you guys have heard this before, but it is true. It is how all of these high achievers get stuff done. Use a shared calendar. Use Google Calendar. I use Google Calendar and it comes to my phone, and I use my Apple Calendar, but my Google calendars are connected to it. So you can use whatever you want to use, but use something that is connected in some way. I have said before that use what works for you, and I would still say that. However, the world operates on Google Calendar, really. The world operates on a shared calendar, on something like that. And so to make it so that you're not double booking yourself, to make it so that you know when you have time, to make it so that you are running your own life, I highly, highly recommend a digital calendar of some sort. Know your working style. When are you most productive? This is not something we're going to address today, but in doing, we know that you're most productive. Most people are most productive at the beginning of the day. Willpower runs out throughout the day. And so get the worst things that you don't want to do done first. For a lot of us, that's making phone calls. So do that in the beginning of your day. And then you can say, check it off the list. I'm done. Even if you do nothing else, that is your most important thing. So you've done what you needed to do. Prioritize those big rocks. Figure out what it is in your life and make sure to put those on your calendars. Then you want to delegate. What can you delegate if you don't have a team? Well, if you have a TC, you can delegate things to them. You can delegate things once you do start building your team. If you have a virtual assistant, you can delegate to them. If you have a spouse, you can delegate some of the housework and things like that. Number 5, make sure to build in some flex time. Make sure that you are not booked solid. Make sure that you have some time that you can be flexible. And then reassess your system. What's working, what's not. And make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Make sure that exercise is on there. Self-care. Make sure that going and having a spa day is on there. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Get out and take a walk. Make sure that you're eating healthy. All of these things are going to be so important to be able to fit everything into your life. Now, one of the things that is not on here that I just want to add as like a little bonus tip is your day starts the day before. And so you want to make sure that you're reviewing everything for the next day, the day before. You want to make sure that your alarm is set. You want to make sure that you are fully hydrated. You want to make sure that you are ready to go the night before so that your next day can be productive. All right, let's talk about multitasking. Everybody thinks they're a good multitasker, but guess what? Multitasking is a lie. Once you know what's most important, avoid multitasking. Research shows humans aren't very good at it. Why? Every time you switch tasks, and this is what we talked about before, even if it's just looking up from reviewing your resume to check your email, your brain has to refocus, breaking the extended concentration needed for innovative thinking. And these costs are high. It can take 23 minutes to refocus, resulting in a 40% loss of productivity. Now, some of you are thinking like, oh, I don't need to be super productive at my day doing real estate. But actually, when we talk about lead gen and all that kind of stuff, when we talk about what is our social media plan going to be, what's our business plan going to be, we do need to do some deep thinking. We need to be innovative. We need to be able to be focused. Here's another one. If you're thinking, oh, not me, I'm good at multitasking, think again. Research shows that people who think they're good at multitasking are actually the worst at it. So keep that in mind. Multitasking is a lie. Do not try and say, I'm a great multitasker, because the reality is you're probably the worst at it. Okay, so how do we combat this? The answer is focus. So I might be introducing this to you. I don't know if you've heard this before. It's the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. And basically this guy had a tomato timer, like we would call it an egg timer, that was 25 minutes. And so he said, okay, I'm going to pick a task and I'm going to set a 25-minute timer. Work on that task until the time is up, take a 5-minute break. And then for every 4 Pomodoros, for every 30 minutes, take a longer 15 to 30 minute break. So basically you're taking this time to really focus. And what this means is that we're saying we're going to focus for this time and this time only. So again, work expands to the time you give it. So if you only have 25 minutes, that's what you're going to do. I did this presentation working in this way with this technique. I said, I'm going to set a 25-minute timer and then I'm going to take a break no matter where I am. But if I was like on a roll, I would basically set another 5-minute timer and finish up what I was doing, like in my, whatever my thought process was. And then I took a break and I snuggled my puppy, or I went and got some water, or I grabbed a snack or whatever it was. And then I came back, set another 25-minute timer, and was at it again. And so if we think about this for you, let's think about a day in Pomodoros. So 1 Pomodoro equals 25 minutes focus work session plus a 5-minute break. Well, that's 30 minutes. So for every 4 30-minute sessions, we're at 2 hours, you take a 20-minute break. So 20-minute coffee break, 30-minute lunch break, 20-minute walking break. So what does this look like for us? Well, we could say here, we have from 8:30 to 9, some lead gen prep. We're doing our role play. We're doing our scripts. We're preparing in command who we're going to talk to that day. Then from 9 to 11, we're going to do lead gen. So we're going to do lead gen for 25 minutes. Then we're going to take a 5-minute break. Then we're going to do another set of lead gen for 25 minutes and then another 25-minute break or 5-minute break. And so you're able to say, I'm going to work on this for 25 minutes. That's not too long. Anybody can work for 25 minutes. And if you really put your head down and really do that, you're going to realize, oh, that went by so fast. Then from 11 to 11:30, you take a break. So you can grab a snack, you can do whatever you want. And obviously you can change this to however it works for you. From 11:30 to 1:30, this is another 2-hour block. You're doing business communication. This is when you look at your emails. This is when you deal with that urgent and important. This is when you make sure that you are addressing your client issues and client concerns. You have time built into your schedule for that kind of thing. Maybe this is when you do your bookkeeping. Whatever that looks like, this is what you're doing. Then from 1 to 1:30, you take lunch. From 1:30 to 3:30, lead conversion. So you're having appointments, you're talking to people, you're going out, maybe showing properties, scheduling them, whatever that is, that's from that 1:30 to 3:30 time. Then again, another break, and then you have your appointments. Oh, that's where you have your appointments. So you're not going to have all of these every single day. So you're going to have that flex time automatically built in. But if you do your work based on this principle, this technique, I think it will help you be able to be more productive during that time. So give this a try. This was something that I hadn't tried before, and I tried it and I actually really liked it. And I'll probably be using it again in the future because I did really like it. What do we need to time block first? We need to time block our weekly days off. We need to make sure we're taking time off. Real estate can be a 24/7 business, so we have to make sure that we have that time blocked out. For me, if you were to look at my Calendly, you as the agents would never be able to schedule time on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You can schedule time a lot of other times, but you can never schedule time on those days. So same thing with clients. I am able to meet with them, but they can't automatically book up my schedule on those days. And so I want to reserve those for doing showings. I want to reserve those for, other meetups and things like that. But I have those weekly days off scheduled. So they're not necessarily always days off where I'm doing nothing, because I am we work on the weekends. It's more so that I have that time available. Vacations, make sure that you're scheduling in your vacations. Make sure that you're taking vacation. Even if it's a staycation, make sure that you're taking it. Holidays and family time, they should be time blocked in your calendar. Personal time, so time that you need to separate yourself to, maybe that's working out every day, maybe that's taking a walk, maybe that's going to the spa, whatever that is, time block it. Actually time block it in your schedule. Exercise. This is a key one, and I bring it up a few times just because exercise, in my mind, I feel like I like to exercise because of the mental health benefit it brings. Obviously, yes, it's good for my body, it's good for my heart, my lungs, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm more so looking at it with, I need to be able to get out, separate myself from everything and focus on something else. And that's what that does. And then time for personal growth and development. Maybe that's coaching. Maybe that's going to conferences. Maybe that is going to church. Maybe that is all kinds of things for you. What is that personal growth and development for you? Make sure that you're time blocking that, so that once all this is time blocked, now you can go back and say, okay, let's go back to my ideal day and plug in my lead gen time, plug in my business communication time, plug in all of the other stuff that I have going on, because it's working around these things that are the most important. All right. And what do we do? What is important now? How do we win? Write down your priorities. Make sure that you are writing it down and you're not just thinking about like, oh yeah, this would be a good thing to do. Write it down. Even better would be if you actually time blocked it, put it in your calendar to make it happen. What I've done is I have a to-do list for myself that is on my notes app. So you can use whatever you want. I use my notes app because it talks to all my different devices. And I've actually broken it up into those different categories. So I have the urgent and important, urgent, not important, but urgent, all of those kind of things. And so obviously, like, there are going to be some things where I'm like, this is not really important, but it is urgent for me to do. So let me make sure to put that at the top of my one list. I'm writing this down so that I can keep track of what I'm doing, what I've said I was going to do, what I know that I need to do, but I'm not going to waste mental energy on it today. I'm writing all those things down. Calendar, what's important? Create your time blocks and stick to them. That is part of your homework. Make sure that you're doing time blocks and then stick to them. You guys are good at showing up to this kind of stuff. Make sure that you're also good at doing it in your own life. And then focus, remove the distraction, whatever the cost. Make sure that you are removing distractions from your life. And maybe that means not watching TV at night. Maybe that means getting rid of Netflix. Maybe that means using the focus, do not disturb button on your phone. Whatever that means for you, just focus, because we know that is what is the enemy of being productive, is when you're trying to multitask, when you're trying to do too many things at once. Now, just so you guys know, there is research that says you can do multitasking for mundane tasks. So for like, if you are folding laundry and listening to a podcast, that's multitasking that you can do, that works. But anything that you need to do where you need to split your brain power, you're literally splitting your brain power. You're not using 100% of anything. And in fact, you're using less than 50% for both of those things because you're switching back and forth. So multitasking, when people say, I can do 2 or more things at the same time, it's actually not true. It's your brain flipping back and forth quickly. But what that looks like is that just means that you are not doing either thing at 100%. It's so much better to do one thing, focus on it, get it done, and then you can move on. So write it down, calendar it, and then focus. And little bonus for you, like we always have at the end, my favorite resources for this kind of thing, the focus feature on my iPhone. I keep talking about that. I don't know what Android version has, but I'm sure it has something. Use it. I use it on my computer. I use it on my phone. It is key for me. Google Calendar, like I said, Google Calendar has like changed my life because I love that you can share the different calendars. So number one, I have the PC calendar that I can refer back to and look at. I have my market center calendar that I can take a look at. I have my partner's calendar. I have my family's calendar. I have my own personal calendar. I have my work calendar. I have all of these things that I'm able to share and look at. So I very rarely am double booked. The only time I'm double booked is if something's not actually in my calendar and I say, oops, that needed to be in the calendar. But I live and die on my calendar. If it is not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. And that is 100% true for me. Calendly, I talked about this. This is a fantastic app where it links to my calendar, one of my calendars, so that I can send you a link and I'll say, hey, sign up for a time to meet with me. And you can choose a time that works best for you. And then it automatically gets input into my calendar. So nobody else can book that time. Nobody else is seeing that. It just is saying there's time available. Brittany has time available here. Do you want to take it? Yes or no? I love, love, love it. I have all my buyers presentations on there. I have all of my listing appointments. I have all of my one-on-ones with you guys. I have any kind of like anybody who wants to chit chat with me. They have a link, schedule a time that works for you. I love it. There is a free version and there's a paid version. I pay like $15 a month for it and it is well worth it. Canva, this is another one. Like I said, don't spend time doing postcards. They have them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just go on Canva and say, find me a real estate postcard. Pick the first one you see. I needed to do holiday cards. I did exactly that. I went on Canva. I said Christmas cards. I literally picked the first one I saw and I said, boom, let's do that. Made a few changes, made a few edits, and then I was done. So don't overthink things. Just use what you have at your disposal. And Canva is free and they have a paid version. And then literally command opportunities. This is a good segue into what we will be talking about next week. We are going to be talking about commanding your time, getting organized. So now we've talked about time management. Next week, we're going to talk about getting into command and how to use that at a high level to organize yourself. I'm going to share with you some things that hopefully are new to you. So make sure that you're joining in next week at 3. If you're not in coaching and you want to know more, reach out to me. I'm here for you.
I hope that was helpful. And remember, if you're interested in coaching, click the link below and let's schedule a time to chat. I would love to help. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.